Me and my boyfriend live in California. While we love the huge state, we also like going on road trips to more natural places. Every once in a while, we decide to take a road trip with our friends just to get out of the city. We would usually do a trip every 3 to 4 months, and the trip would last 3 to 4 days. It was the middle of January when we decided to take our trip through the Mojave Desert. For those who don't know, the Mojave Road is a route located in California that is about 150 miles long and can take up to 3 to 4 days to travel. Our goal was to start in California and end in Arizona. The trail runs through California, Nevada, Utah, and of course Arizona. We were very excited about this trip for many reasons. Our main one was that this trip would be one of our longest, and due to my boyfriend planning on going back to college soon, we knew it would be the last one we would get to do in a while. Our friends Colin and Janet accompanied us, and we're also a couple. Before the trip, we made sure to get all the necessary supplies, which included things like a bunch of food, flashlights, batteries, extra gas, and blankets. We set out for our trip, and in no time we were in the middle of the desert. The beginning of our trip went great. We all ate snacks, stopped multiple times for pictures, and came across a few other people, although it was winter so it wasn't as many people as usual. By that night, we had hit our first destination in Nevada and decided to rest. We parked in a spot off the road and all went to bed pretty quickly considering we had been up all day. I remember dozing off fairly quickly, but being awakened by tapping on my shoulder a few hours later. I woke up and saw Janet crouching down beside me on her seat and peeking out of her blanket. She had this look of immense fear on her face, and she was covering her lips, telling me to stay down and be quiet. I didn't get what was going on, so I did as she said. That is when I started hearing this scratching and grunting sound coming from beside me. I peeked beside me and looked at the door I was sitting by. I saw these long claw-like fingers trying to get through the crack of the window that I had left open. The crack was less than an inch wide, but I could still see these black long claws scratching the inside trying to get in. I looked over at Janet, who was pretty much crying at that point, and I saw that laying beside her was a flashlight. I quickly picked up the flashlight, turned it on, and aimed it at the window. I only got a glance at the perpetrator, but honestly, that image is engraved in my mind to this day. I don't know what this creature was, but it looked huge and skinny. It had bug-like eyes and was super pale. It was standing over the car, but when the flash came on, it hit the car with a force so powerful that it nearly knocked it over. It then gave out this demonic scream and ran away. As it ran, we can also hear dozens of other footsteps. These weren't just any footsteps, they sounded almost like hooves. If you ever heard a horse run, you know what I mean, but we didn't just hear it from this creature, we heard it from multiple directions. By the time the creature hit the car, my boyfriend and Colin had woken up, so they heard the hooves as well. Before they could say or ask anything, I immediately told them to drive. We needed to leave. My boyfriend, who was the driver at this point, immediately crunked up the car and mashed the gas, but the car didn't move. He tried over and over again, but nothing happened. My boyfriend and Colin were going to get out to check things, but me and Janet pretty much begged them not to go, which they did. We told them what we saw. Janet, who woke up before us all, said that she woke up to banging at the back of the car and then started to hear grunting and hoof sounds. She then saw when the creature put his nails through the crack of the window, and then she woke me up. At this point, it was around 3 and we only had a few hours until sunrise, so we decided to just wait in the car until sunrise and then get out of there. That night was pretty sleepless, as you probably can imagine. And due to this, we ended up all falling asleep just before sunrise. I woke up around 12 and heard the guys outside arguing and Janet crying. I left the car and couldn't believe what I saw. Both back wheels had pretty much been scratched down to the rim. Our trunk was also open. The metal lock had been completely scratched through. Almost all our supplies was gone or broken. After arguing about what to do for almost an hour, we knew one thing was certain, and that was that we needed to get out of there. There was no doubt that whatever creature this was could certainly break through a window if it wanted to. We tried calling out, but we realized that we had made it to a particular point of the trail with little to no service. Colin, who was super angry about the car, got very aggravated by the thought of us just sitting there waiting for help. His frustration was kind of understandable, especially after us sitting there for almost 2 hours and nobody coming by. There are many different trails and areas you can go to in the desert. He wanted to go on a trail to see if he could find someone or see if he could at least get some cell service. We did not think this was a good idea. Not only was there the possibility of getting lost, but also there was no guarantee that he would get service or meet anyone who could help. After arguing for a while, Colin decided he was going to do it by himself. We all tried to convince him, but he just wouldn't listen. Eventually, Janet decided that she had to go with him, and they left. We waited for hours once again, and nobody came by. It had gotten late, and Colin and Janet never came back. It was extremely late, so me and my boyfriend got in the car and were slowly falling asleep. Before I could completely doze off, I started to hear sounds slowly approaching the car. It was small grunts and growls followed by tiny hoof-like sounds. It almost sounded like whatever it was trying to be as quiet as possible. I shook my boyfriend awake, and he soon heard it as well. Once again, the sounds were coming from all directions, and as they got closer, the sounds became noticeably louder. Me and my boyfriend ducked down in our seats and tried to hide as they reached the car. When they did, they began bumping it extremely hard once again. The growls they made were pretty much purposely loud and over the top, and they began going around the car in almost a circle-like pattern. Me and my boyfriend began to hold each other as the sounds got louder and louder. My boyfriend turned on the flashlight, but this time it had no effect. They only started screeching and hitting the car more and more. The car almost flipped multiple times, and we could do nothing about it. One hit finally broke the glass window and knocked the car over on its side. I remember hitting my head on my door and then going into a short daze. I wasn't knocked unconscious or anything, but I did go dizzy and my vision went blurry. When I started to regain my focus, I realized everything had stopped. I looked forward and saw headlights in the distance. I looked around but saw or heard nothing else. The car picked us up and we told them everything, although they knew nothing about any of it. They let us in and we told them about our 2 lost friends as we were driving. After about 10 minutes, we saw Janet in the distance. She seemed frantic and was waving her hands around. We stopped and got her, and she told us her and Colin were being followed and she had lost him. We soon got to a place with reception and called for help. We even searched around a little bit, but we couldn't find him. 2 days later, Colin was found sitting near a trail. It was strange because this was a trail that we knew we had checked. When he was found, he was asleep and was almost completely unscathed, but on his back, there was this deep cut. The cut looked like the letter K and was directly in the center of his back. Strangely enough, it had healed up by the time he was found, and even though it was extremely deep, Colin had lost almost no blood at all. To our knowledge, he does not know anything that happened. He for some reason doesn't even remember the attack we faced the initial night, which is strange. We're still good friends, but for some reason, I just feel like Colin is different. He doesn't act like he used to. This event is extremely traumatizing for the rest of us, but he acts like he doesn't remember it for the most part. I know that people handle trauma differently, but I just feel like that isn't the case. I truly feel like something sinister happened to Colin that night. I don't know what happened, but I do know it has changed him forever, and to this day he doesn't seem like the same person.